We covered everyone living in poverty for the first time ever. And Wisconsin is now ranked first in the nation for healthcare quality. But Obamacare premiums skyrocketed by 44% this year, and many families just can't afford to pay for their health care. Washington keeps promising to fix the problem, but it never happens. So we took action. Our bipartisan plan will lower premiums by 3.5%. My opponent wants to expand Medicaid to people with higher incomes. When other states did that, their premiums went up. We have a better way. Our plan lowers premiums, increases choices, and improves health care for everyone. Paid for by Friends of Scott Walker.
Here's a look at your weatherology forecast. A few spotty rain showers this afternoon with cloudy skies, a high around 50 degrees. Winds out of the east around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, cloudy skies, a low near 40, and east winds around 5 to 10. By Saturday, mostly cloudy skies, a high around 52. We'll have northeast winds around 5 to 10. And by Sunday, chance for rain showers, cloudy skies, a high of 50. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki, your hometown station, AM 1430 WBEV. Currently, it's 48.
There are thousands of ways to invest. At United Cooperative, we choose to invest in what we believe in, our farmers. In 2018, United Cooperative has paid its members a total of $8.2 million in stock revolvement. Stop by your local United Cooperative and learn more about becoming a member. Visit us at unitedcooperative.com and like us on Facebook. United Cooperative. Rely on us.
I'm Burris agronomist Dana Harder.
I'm Clayton Cook. My brother and I are fifth generation of our family's farm.
Burris sweats the small details so growers get the most profit. Every year since 1935, we have offered growers 100% free replant.
Our farm looks to me for seed recommendations. It comes down to results for the price.
Our hands-on detasseling and pre-harvest methods help maintain preferred size and improve quality for each seed.
We want this farm to be around for the next generation. We take pride in working with an independent company.
Plant your legacy, burrisseed.com.
When it comes to finding the right assisted living resource, Prairie Ridge knows exactly what is important when making such a large decision for yourself or a loved one. That is why Prairie Ridge Assisted Living in Beaver Dam and Waupun are proud to offer amenities that will help make the transition seamless. They have thought of every detail to create an at-home environment, from being pet-friendly, providing private, spacious apartment-like rooms with private baths and kitchenettes. They also feature rehab assistance, numerous social activities, an on-site chapel, and a large experienced staff of caregivers to help provide you with all of your needs. Go online at prairieridgeassisted.com and request your private tour today, and come and see all of the amazing amenities Prairie Ridge Assisted Living in Beaver Dam and Waupun have to offer. Prairie Ridge Assisted Living, where home is first and assisted living is second.
Join us on Friday, November 2nd for our 8th annual WXRO Winter Clothing Drive for Kids to benefit PAVE, sponsored by Dr. Gent from Chiropractic USA of Beaver Dam. Bring your gently used or new child-sized snow boots, snow pants, coats, and water-resistant mittens or gloves. We'll be outside the WBEV WXRO studios at 100 Bill McCullum Way in Beaver Dam on Friday, November 2nd between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m.
October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. PAVE knows that domestic violence thrives when we are silent. Safety is a human right. We believe everyone deserves a safe space, and home should be a place of peace and refuge. No one should have to worry about making it through the day unharmed. Domestic violence is the third leading cause of homelessness in families. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been victims of physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. And 10 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year. In 2017, PAVE provided 4,077 nights of shelter and services to 772 individuals. PAVE is here always to protect, advocate, validate, and educate. Available 24/7, call toll-free 800-775-3785 or text 920-344-0123.
This is AM 1430 WBEV, streaming online at dailydodge.com. It is 12:39. Time now for today's community comment. Here is your host, Craig Warmbold.
Well, thank you very much, and Good afternoon. Welcome to Community Comment. Our guests on Community Comment today, the final Friday of the month, we always like to welcome the mayor of the city of Beaver Dam, Becky Glewen. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
Thanks again for having me, Craig.
And we also have a special guest in this segment. We want to welcome into the conversation the city attorney of Beaver Dam, Marianne Schock. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
Now, a little bit later in the program, we are going to have the city finance director, John Summers, joining us because it is budget time.
Right.
And
Exciting times.
a lot of stuff going on in terms of forging that document, $16.5 million document, and there's a borrowing going on at the same time for the first time. I think in a boy, Marianne, maybe you could educate us better on the history. I don't know, has the budget and the borrowing plan ever been considered at the same time, or has it always been considered in March? And
no, it's always been together. It's to have the CIP and the budget, working hand in hand. So that's what they're trying to do again.
Yeah.
But we skip and sometimes don't. That didn't happen
With
last
Kennedy,
year,
kinda.
but it has in the past.
Gotcha.
The idea is to basically have them both, so that you have an idea what you're going to spend and how much you're going to borrow.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the program. But first, you wanted Marianne to join us today to talk a little bit about what? Why don't you frame it for us?
Yeah, well, I thought it would be helpful to have Marianne along and talking about open meetings laws, and because there's been some question about that. We had some, some closed session times where we've had some discussions about property dealings, and so I thought it would be helpful to have Marianne come and kind of talk about law and how we're following that and making sure that everything that's public should be public, and the times that we do need to work on some things in without the public view. Certainly in the end, it's always open to anyone. And so anyway, I just thought if Marianne, if you wanted to kind of give some viewpoints and to talk a little bit about open meetings.
And you're kind of talking about, if I'm not mistaken, the sale of the hospital and the apartment complex that's now going to be turned into some lakefront condos over there off of La Crosse Street.
Right,
okay.
Right. That's one of the pieces, and then we also went into closed session when we were talking about purchasing the laundry building downtown. That was another time, I believe, and so just some of those, occasions that we've been talking about purchasing.
So, Marianne, what could and there has been criticism of, that I've heard and everything like that as far as, well, a lot of this stuff is taking place in open session. And from my perspective, I know that when you talk about things like land deals and negotiations like that, that's always been something that's been allowed in closed session.
Absolutely. I think what I would like to do is just educate the general public about the Wisconsin Open Meeting Laws Guidance Plan, which has been and continually has been updated. This one I have now is from the Attorney General, Brad Schimmel. And so this is the most current. And I think the most important thing for people to understand is that a municipality is subject to open meetings. But I think what the issue has been in the last couple months or so is that they don't understand what the definition of a meeting is for purposes of a city government, and then what, as Becky has just said, what we had to go into closed sessions, which is absolutely positively allowable by the open meeting law guide, because of the fact that when you negotiate with regard to buying or negotiate with regard to government contracts that have possibilities of issues that one party or the other needs to have the secretiveness about it so that they can negotiate, and that's just the general rule. So I think the most important thing that I understood from all of the criticism of the city, and I can tell you that I would never ask the city to violate the open meeting law. I'm very understanding of it. I was always in compliance. So I do not believe at this point in time we have done anything to have the general public have any distrust in what the city of Beaver Dam is doing. A meeting is defined by the statute. Ad hoc committees we have, and they are not subject to the open meeting law because they are not directed to do specific things. And all of the negotiations that we had in the last couple months have been very successful based on following the law. We went into closed session, and we then came into open session, and we were successful in purchasing all those properties. I would like to just say that if anybody has a question about open meeting law, my office is always open. I have the law. I will be happy to sit down and talk to them if they have any issues or questions, but the most important thing is to know that we are in compliance. And there are people who are saying that there was secretiveness about it. That is not true.
And as the news reporter who's been on this beat for about a decade now, I would say that I agree with everything that you just said. I had no question about any of the things that were being discussed in closed session. I think the question that's asked of me then, and then maybe the one that I'm not able to provide, is this: how do we get to that first closed session meeting? Because negotiations kind of somehow have to start between some person and some entity to sell something, and what are the boundaries of that kind of pre-planning before you get into a closed session meeting that are permitted?
That's a good question, and the answer.
Thank you, Marianne.
You're welcome. And the answer to that would be that anybody that comes before the mayor and/or myself or the director and says that they have an issue that they would like to present to the council, but there is a confidentiality about it for reasons that there might be competitiveness or there may be other things, and so then through the mayor, director or myself, we ask that the council go into closed session to make those determinations. And that's how it starts. And sometimes it doesn't take very long in closed session. Sometimes the deliberations, when you're dealing with other parties, take longer, and maybe because we were dealing with the hospital on a long-term basis, people felt that, there was more sessions that went through and closed than there were previously. But believe me, it was done in a manner in which hopefully the general public understands that when closed sessions, the statute provides exact definitions of what you can do and how you can get into closed sessions. So I hope we can let the public know that also.
Well, and I imagine just have to take place long before that. If somebody, and we'll say in this case, WDS Construction, who's the developer for the condos down there, would have to, I imagine, make a phone call and reach out to the mayor and say, hey, I've got this idea. Could we have a meeting in your office, and maybe we could talk about what our next steps may be. In fact, I know we just had one of those recently, with our station, talking about trying to get Daily Dodge videotaping some of the city council meetings and everything. So initial meetings have to take place at some time that are, as long as they're less than a quorum, I assume are perfectly reasonable to kind of lay the groundwork for stuff.
Correct. And so the city was, we had a grant, or the hospital had a grant through the state that we were in partnership with them in order for them to get that to look at the usability of the building that was there. So we were in conversation with them. We knew what they were working on. That's a private group working on that, and they were in conversations with developers. Then, at some point, the conversation was, I don't think the numbers are going to pan out, that the cost to remove that building is going to work. And so that's when we, took it to council and saying, hey, the numbers aren't working out. But we had been, we were had knowledge of what the hospital was doing, and we were trying to help make sure that moved forward, because we knew it was a great project for the community, and we wanted to make sure that happened.
And the most important thing is that the hospital is not the only ones that we were dealing with at the time. And so basically, I think the collaborativeness and working with the hospital in these meetings, we're trying to work out the terms and conditions. They're certainly made public now that the city council passed the same. So I don't think we should focus on the hospital. I think we should focus on all the other things that we have to do through open meeting laws and how we can go into closed session.
But I think you brought up a good point, and just saying, okay, we were notified of a problem, and saying, the video that we do on council meetings, the sound's not very good, there's a problem there, And so someone had suggested to me, hey, and there's the desire to go more digital anyway with things so that people can access meetings and such online. And so they said, have you talked to the radio station? Would they be willing, since they already have the setup and capability to do that? In the meantime, hey, Columbus has already gone digital. Have you spoken with them? So I called Columbus and I spoke with the administrator over there, and they said, well, this is who we work with. So then I just, asked that individual, what's your knowledge of this type of equipment? And I spoke with you then and just said, hey, do you guys have any information on this? If we were to fix this, we want to look at it during budget and try to make this accessible for people if it's not good quality. And so,
that's kind of what I used as an example.
Right.
As far as when we get the ball rolling, though, on this conversation with the development and everything like that, just going back to clarify, if there's not a quorum that meets, essentially you're allowed to kind of present an idea, I assume, and then talk about what that next step would be.
That's correct, but the issue is that you got to be very careful that it's not a committee that is appointed with a direction. What you're doing is what we call ad hoc, so that people that are gathering together to discuss that situation or the terms and conditions, and then they come forward. So no, there is no violation if you just are talking to somebody with regard to a possibility in the future.
And this had to be very exciting to you. I don't know if you could give us any insight into how the ball got rolling on this whole condo development that's now going to bring, I forget what the price tag, at least $4 million onto the tax roll. Can you give us some insight into those early discussions and how everything came to be?
I think really it was just basically what I had said, is that we were already working with them on a grant, and so we were just keeping
in terms of the developer, in terms of like WDS Construction,
on working with WDS.
Sure.
Well, then it was conversations with the hospital and what they had already found out, and they had some conversations with developers. So they were able to bring that to the table and in that partnership with them. So that was really beneficial. But yeah, it was absolutely exciting, because that has been a real problem in our community for a long time. And so to have everything align like it has is a huge win for our community. It's very, very exciting.
$4 million on the tax roll.
Right. Right.
In a property that's been vacant for longer than I've been here.
20 years.
20 years.
And a need in a niche kind of in our community where we don't have a lot, the condo developments. And so that's something that I think people have talked to me for years. Boy, wouldn't that property be beautiful and have condos there? It would be wonderful. And so to actually pull it all together, and we, and part of our conversation was saying the market's really good right now. We really need to make this project happen. And so let's.
And Craig, I do think it's important that you do talk to the hospital, the CEO, their board, to get their perspective too, because this was a collaborative effort. So we can only speak on behalf of the city, but I think that they would certainly appreciate and entertain the possibility of talking to you also.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just when you bring that point up, there were some dissenting votes on the council floor about some of the wording in the contract as it related to non-disclosure agreements and everything like that. Were you comfortable as the city attorney with the wording getting into that contract?
I was, because it was a negotiated agreement. It was again a collaborative one. The issues were well thought of. I worked with their attorney, we worked together, and yes, I was satisfied, and I made a recommendation to the council to accept it.
Yeah. We're on this topic of open meetings and everything like that. Another area of criticism that's come up and has been about Skunk Island and the sale of that property, city-owned property. I should probably, in the interest of full disclosure, I should mention that John Moser, who works here, is the chair of that committee. I have not had an opportunity to talk to him about any of this yet, but there has been, a question about an agenda not being issued for that particular meeting.
And I will tell you this, and I was very impressed with the Daily Citizen who called me. Apparently, they do not have an attorney, the Beaver Dam Lake Association. I represent the city, not them. I have been working with John Moser to give him some direction. That meeting was inadvertently scheduled. Nothing was accomplished at that meeting, But the Daily Citizen did call me. I said it was inadvertent. They have always posted. Somehow this just didn't get on the proper 3 places that they had to do it, and I don't think there was any damage done.
Okay, so it was an incorrect assumption that there was an actual actionable sale of the island at that meeting?
Yeah, no, there was
There
no.
was no sale, so clearing the record
Absolutely.
here, none of that ever occurred.
No.
And because they're not elected officials, but appointed representatives on there, do they have the same threshold of a quorum that, say, one of the committees we were talking about earlier might have?
Yes, they are a committee of the city council.
Okay.
I mean, they are appointed by the mayor.
So is John Moser going to get in trouble?
Oh, of course, let's get him in trouble.
All right. So,
No, he
I
is
joke,
not.
but seriously though, it was just kind of an oversight, and so.
It was inadvertent, and everybody accepted that inadvertently. He did not.
I would
he did not-
argue that the actual postings and note-taking and minutes are better taken care of at this point. So
Okay.
I think the leadership has been fantastic. And everything it was just that one meeting, and again, all minutes are shown and are available, and so it was just an oversight. I think, we've certainly had our moments where we've all had that happen, and so otherwise I've been very impressed, with the group and the work that they've been doing, and they've been very professional about handling it.
And while we're on the subject, before we wrap up with some open meetings
Yeah.
talk, can you give us an update on where that whole Skunk Island thing is?
Well, we've actually been on kind of a break right now
Okay.
because of the fall season and coming back. But it was at the time it was the committee had gone through a lot of information over the last year, and they were looking at them keeping the island and providing insurance for that, and whether it would be open or keeping it closed. And so at this time they were recommending that the city would take ownership of that. Those are further conversations that would have to happen if that would actually move forward or not. There's a lot that would have to go into that if that were the case. But they brought in a lawyer from another area, which we had reached out to La Crosse, who has an island as well, to find out how they had accomplished that. And so those were some of the conversations, and then that lawyer provided insight of if we were to do that, this is how we might go about doing that. So those are further meetings that have to happen with that group, and I think they're going to start up again in November.
Right.
Okay.
And I will tell you that I respectfully disagreed with the attorney from La Crosse and some of his suggestions, and so we are, as a city's attorney, I'm going to, be very diligent in the conversations that are going to come up, because I do think the city has to know the costs and all of the other factors that would be involved in that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. And while we'll go back to the open meetings law thing here, and maybe just generally talking about it, Marianne, what would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions by the public of the open meetings law?
Not understanding the terms and conditions, not understanding that it is it's part of a statute. It's, again, it's 1901. The whole is in the statute book. It goes through all the things that you have to do in order to get it accomplished. The idea of the open meetings law, and I think maybe the concept is that everything the city does, everybody should know about the instant it's being talked about or the instance it's being done. It is basically, the idea is that the city wants the general public to know what's going on, and I think we make a really good effort. Becky does go all over the city, all over the state, all over the country, just to give the impressions of what we're doing and how we're getting them done. So I think the misconception is somebody might have thought that she did something, or somebody did something which was a little secretive. I can tell you that my ethics would be a concern for me if I thought the city was not doing due diligence and keeping up with the statute, and I think we're doing a good job.
And then let me ask you this question, broadly speaking, not related to any of the discussion here today. Same question, except what would you say has been the biggest misconception over the years? You've seen a couple councils in your time. What would you say has been the biggest misconception by elected officials with the open meetings law?
Well, I think that it's being naive and not understanding and going through the terms and conditions of what is required. I mean, they the understanding is you want to talk, but who can you talk to? The understanding is the number of alderpersons that can be in a place, and the statute is very clear that you can still socialize, and as long as you're not having an agenda when you're socializing, that's not a violation. And so some people have that concept that if Becky is sitting with somebody having breakfast or something, that there is an agenda item there, and that's not true. She has a right to just be conversive with anybody. So I would say it's always an issue if it individually, is something that you're interested in. It's not usually, and I don't think I've ever seen it, where a whole group of people are thinking that we're violating. It's one individual who might say, as a result of something that they don't like, that somehow that got to be in an agenda item incorrectly. Otherwise,
and I think one of the newest areas, we haven't experienced a problem with this, but is one area that we talk about a lot is emails. And it can have the same repercussions as you can send out an announcement, but you can't reply to everyone because of it being a conversation. Right.
And
we
I
haven't had an issue with it, but we are always cognizant of that and reminding people.
I do send that memo out on a regular basis.
Okay. So you're saying you can't talk about, and I'm fuzzy maybe on this part of the area, a city official, whether it be an alderman, mayor, whatever, can't talk with even one other city official about any.
No, they can talk. I'm just talking about a quorum.
Right, and so that, okay, great, and that's what I wanted to clarify. What is, we'll apply it to the city of Beaver Dam here before we wrap up this segment. What is considered a quorum with 14 alderpersons and one mayor? What's that number?
9.
9. Okay, all right. So
that's a quorum.
That's an official quorum.
Yeah.
And then on a committee level,
we're talking about when we're voting and things of that nature. You need.
You would need that quorum, and again, if 9 city officials were to get together, they should probably issue, if they're going to go to a graduation ceremony, they should probably issue an agenda for something like that, for example. Right?
Of course.
Okay.
No, if they go to a graduation,
they just don't talk business.
Right.
They're there. They can socialize.
They can socialize. They just can't talk business.
Absolutely, positively.
Okay. All right. There are some good things to keep in mind here when it comes to.
So the whole council could get together, but they just can't talk about anything, any type of city business. They can talk about their kids, and they can talk about.
Well, you're having a Christmas gathering with all the city people.
And I do see some municipalities issue an agenda for that. There may be a quorum of city officials there. City of business will not be discussed. And that's kind of going above and beyond?
That is.
Okay.
But the statute does not require that. But if some people feel that is more important, you certainly can do it.
All right, very good. Well, Marion, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the program today.
You're
Anything you want to leave us, any parting words, parting wisdom you want to leave us with on the program today?
No, thank you very much.
Very good.
I don't want to be misquoted.
Well, it'd be right out of your mouth, so.
No, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Okay, we do appreciate you.
I'm going to let John make any more comments.
All right, well, you don't have to leave yet. It's like the Tonight Show. You got to stay until we go to break. So we'll wrap things up, and we have a juggler and a comedian coming up later in the program, but it's budget time, and there is a lot of stuff to talk about when it does come to the 2019 budget. The city finance director is. I really do feel like I'm on the Tonight Show here now. We got the city finance director on the other side of the couch. We're going to be talking about that. Marion, again, I want to thank you very much for joining me.
I don't want
you
to talk to the city finance director about open meeting laws. You just get him to talk about the budget.
Fair enough. City Attorney Marianne Schacht. Mayor Becky Glewen sticking around to talk budget. If you do have a question about the budget, I imagine if there's other areas that you want to talk about as well, 920-885-4446 is the number. And a note to those listening to us on AM 1430 WBEV. You can also listen to us on on dailydodge.com if you have internet access. And by the way, we are video streaming today as well, so you can catch the live video stream under the video tab at dailydodge.com. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Cheer on the green and gold. Don't miss the next Green Bay Packers broadcast of the season on Sunday, October 28th on 1430 WBEV. Next up, the Packers head west to take on the LA Rams. Pre-game coverage begins at 1 p.m. on AM 1430 WBEV. And don't miss Green and Gold this week, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. on WBEV and WXRO. Dodge County's home for the Green Bay Packers is 1430 WBEV and 95.3 WXRO. This is AM 1430 WBEV Beaver Dam, streaming online at dailydodge.com. Take advantage of the Countryside Ford Quick Lane Works package. Oil change, tire rotation, and free inspection, just $39.95. No appointment necessary. Available Monday through Saturday. Countryside Ford, 330 Transit Road, Columbus.
Tune in to AM 1430 WBEV for coverage of the Green and Gold game Sunday, October 28th, beginning at 1 p.m. And listen for the Columbus Family Dental Mystery Player of the Game. Listen to the morning show on Monday, October 29th on AM 1430 with John and John. Be the correct number caller when they ask who was the Columbus Family Dental Mystery Player of the Game on October 28th. Get it right, and you'll win a Sonicare Power Toothbrush valued at over $100. Plus, you'll be entered into the grand prize drawing for an autographed Aaron Rodgers mini helmet.
The Beaver Dam Booster Club would like to congratulate the Beaver Dam High School boys cross-country members that qualified for state competition. Congratulations to Cade Farron and Gavin Zarnecki. Their state competition is this Saturday, October 27th at Ridges Golf Course in Wisconsin Rapids. Beaver Dam Booster Club is proud of their accomplishments and wishes them success at state. Best of luck to you, Cade and Gavin.
Hello, I'm State Representative Mark Bourne. 6 years ago, I promised to take the common sense conservative values of the 39th Assembly District with me to Madison, and that is exactly what I did. We invested record amounts in education and worker training and reduced government red tape. With our reforms, Wisconsin is moving in the right direction, with record low unemployment and a growing economy. It has been an honor to represent you in the legislature. Now, I need your support to keep Wisconsin moving forward. On November 6th, vote Mark Bourne for State Assembly.
Paid for by Bourne for Assembly.
They are constantly changing things up in the liquor department at Beaver Dam Piggly Wiggly on the beautiful east side of Beaver Dam. You know, the crew at Beaver Dam Piggly Wiggly knows that you love your bourbons. That's why they've added many new flavors of bourbons and a great selection of rye bourbons. Plus, they've got the blended whiskeys, the scotches, and all of your all-time favorites. And you know what? Kessler's whiskey is big in Dodge County. You'll always find the lowest price allowed by law on Kessler's. Where? At Beaver Dam Piggly Wiggly on the beautiful east side of Beaver Dam.
You've had your bow restrung and sighted. Your camo hangs like a flag celebrating the hunt to come. From September 16th to November 9th, your phone goes right to voicemail. But after you drag the trophy buck home, it's time to share the spoils. And no one prepares your deer for a victory meal quite like Pernat's. For over 36 years, Pernat's has skinned, cut, wrapped, and frozen deer for all triumphant hunters. Process your deer for only $70. Then savor Pernat's award-winning creations like summer sausage, hot sticks, jerky, cheddarwurst, brats, bacon, and more. Hard work never tasted so good. During bow season, Pernat's has after-hour drop-offs at all 3 of their locations and is your deer donation destination. Visit Pernat Hossie Meats in Juneau, Pernat's Premium Meats in Johnson Creek, and Pernat's of Ixonia in Ixonia, or visit them online at pernats.com.
Pastors Carlos and Maria Lopez invite you to the anniversary celebration at Roca Firm Christian Community Church in Randolph on Saturday, November 3rd. The service begins at 2 p.m. with a banquet and food to follow. Everyone is welcome to attend this free event.
No one works harder to help you achieve your goals.
We know how challenging and rewarding farming and this way of life can be.
You won't find financial experts with more ag knowledge and deeper rural roots. We grew up here, and many of us are farm kids through and through. So whether you have 1 acre or 1,000,
whether you're building a house or a legacy,
your friends, family, and neighbors at Compeer Financial have your back.
And we're ready to champion rural together.
Learn more at Compeer.com. Compeer Financial, equal credit opportunity lender.
This is AM 1430 WBEV, streaming online at dailydodge.com. Time for more of today's community comment. Here again is your host, Craig Warmbold.
And again, our guest is the mayor of the city of Beaver Dam, Becky Glewen, and joining us here on this half of the program, we want to welcome the city finance director, John Summers. John, thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
I want to talk to you about numbers. The $16.5 million budget is being deliberated in committee right now. What can you tell us about the levy, where that sits this year versus last year, the mill rate, the equalized value? Give us some of the numbers right up front, if you could.
Overall, the city's equalized value increased this past year. We're a little over $1.1 billion of total property value in the city. As far as the budget goes, the tax levy looks to be around a 2% increase based on where we're at right now. And the mill rate would, based on that number, would drop from, it was $10.05 last year to about $9.95 based on equalized value. And
And because the equalized value, help me, walk me through this, because I'm by no means an expert, but because the equalized value goes up and the mill rate goes down, does that physically translate to a decrease in the city portion of our tax bill?
Not necessarily. It's going to depend on your particular situation as a homeowner. So for instance, if the value of your home increased the average, let's say,
right,
then you'd be looking at maybe a 2% tax increase, on at least the city's portion of the bill.
If I've been assessed, if I've gotten assessed since last year.
Right. Well, the way the city operates is we do a full value maintenance on the city. So property values are adjusted in the city every single year.
Okay.
And our past practice had been that 1/4 of the city had been actually physically inspected during that period, and the remaining 3/4 of the city were adjusted based on sales data that our assessors receive from the state. So they are adjusted every year. We try to, the state actually requires that the assessed values remain within 10% of what the equalized value is. And equalized, you can kind of think of that as what the market value is. So we do try to, the assessors do work to keep those values very close. And this year, I believe the ratio is about 98%.
Okay.
So they're very close to what the equalized values are, the assessed values are.
So it doesn't necessarily mean a drop, even though there is a lower mill rate this year because of your own personal property going up.
Correct. I mean, at the end of the day, the tax levy is the most important thing. If the tax levy is going up, the city or the county or the school district is asking you to pay in more in taxes. And so you're going to see some sort of an increase.
Yeah, tax levy is going down though, or I'm sorry, the mill rate is going down.
Right. Correct. The mill rate is going down.
Tax levy is going up by, what was it, 2.16%? $231,000 or so. And is that a increase you're comfortable with, Mayor?
I think that's a reasonable level of increase, yeah, especially when you're looking at raises and how to fund everything across the city. Yes, I think that's a very reasonable rate.
Is there a proposed increase for city employees?
2%.
2%, which I believe is similar to what was approved last year?
I think so.
Correct. Last year it was 2% in January, and then an additional 1% in October of this year.
Okay. And now with Act 10 and there not being negotiations with city employee unions, which predated your time as a mayor, being able to offer city employees an increase in their, however modest, in their take-home wage. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's really important. I mean, you have to have some type of wage going forward right now when we're looking at the market and our workforce shortage, and to stay competitive. It's certainly reasonable. I don't think that it's over budget on that at all, but we do have to stay competitive, and certainly that's one thing that we're looking at when we're looking at, and we looked at the wage increases over the last, 10 years. I think we pulled that last year, and it was all within 0 to 2% the entire time. So we're taking a look at that certainly every year.
In my news reporting, every time I'll say things like equalized property, I'll say things like the budget is compliant with state-imposed levy limits in the expenditure restraint program, and I don't have time to explain each of those in every single short news story, but since we've got you here in somewhat of a long form format, can you maybe take just a moment to kind of explain the significance of those two things, John?
Sure. With regard to the expenditure restraint program, that is a voluntary program that the state has. And the guidelines of that program are basically, they look at the expense budget, the general fund expense budget for the city, and the amount that can increase in a particular year is based on the percentage of net new construction, which the state would calculate for us. And there's also a consumer price index portion of that. It's 60% of the consumer price index. And so those two numbers are combined, and you come up with a percentage that you are allowed to increase the general fund budget. In the case of this year, it's 3.6%. And so even if there was a large revenue that came into the city, that does not factor into that program. It is truly to control the expense budget. So that's something that the city, quite frankly, has wrestled with quite a bit over the past few years, and we've talked about, well, what if we don't comply? Well, then that would cost the city about $370,000 of state aid. So if we were to just say, we're not going to comply this year, now the levy is going to have to go up $370,000.
If you have room.
Exactly,
in the
which
levy.
brings us to the levy limit.
Right.
And the levy limit is purely based on your net new construction. So however much the state has calculated that you have of net new construction. And they call it net new construction because they also factor in if you're tearing buildings down, that takes away from that number. And that one hasn't been as big a struggle for the city, but certainly it's something that the city has to contend with. And
Sure.
You have to weigh all that when you're putting together the budget.
Yeah. And not every community is able to take advantage of the expenditure restraint program, and we have been able to in Beaver Dam for the last, as long as I can remember, basically, right? Sometimes some maneuvering is needed by experts with financing and accounting. But you say that number, I think it was 370,000. Is that what it was? That's about, when it comes to budget time, when city officials are on the council floor and they're debating, positions and everything from positions to paper clips, that's about the chunk of money that's left over after you pay for salaries and equipment and all the major things, the streets and everything like that. That's about all, correct me if I'm wrong, that really there is left to negotiate, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And what makes it interesting, and just in meeting with when talking with the League of Municipalities, it's really difficult for smaller communities, and especially northern Wisconsin, that isn't experiencing the growth that we do, and they don't have that 3.5% that we've been able to grow, and so they really are struggling in some different communities. So it's been uneven across the state.
And so I think one of the big stories to come out of Beaver Dam's budget, and maybe a few of the other municipalities that you guys are friends with now, for 20 years I've been writing budget stories about health insurance increases. I used the word, it was hard to type it. It was a health insurance decrease. I didn't get it. It didn't make sense. It didn't jive with what has been reality for what is going on with the health insurance, John?
We actually began to explore this last year before we put together the 2018 budget, and it was there was a consulting firm, M3 out of Madison, who I think they've got these consortiums, I guess is what I'll call them, in a few different places with school districts and things like that. And so they brought that concept to Jefferson County, Dodge County, and in a number of municipalities, Watertown, the city of Beaver Dam, and a few others. And the idea is basically you're putting enough employees, enough insured folks together that you're able to get a better rate as a result of that. And I think it also had to do with the state plan. I think there's some changes going on there that gave some concern to like a Dodge County or Jefferson County and whatnot. So anyway, we met with them, came up with some plan designs, and fortunately for the city, Dodge and Jefferson counties, and I'll give them a shout out for this, because if those two counties do not sign on to this, it's just not something that would be available to the city. We wouldn't have enough employees to make that work. So, and so because they signed on to this and agreed to it, the city was able to take advantage of it, and it resulted in almost a 25% decrease in the rates that the city will pay next year.
25%. And assuming that we are able to continue with this consortium in future years, we're not going to see decreases like that every year, but to be in a starting point now going forward where we've dropped that much in the cost of our health insurance should be good news for future budgets.
Right, and another part of the consortium is there are rate increase caps for the next 2 years.
Okay.
Built into that as well.
Really?
So,
what are those rate increase caps?
I believe it's 9.9%.
Okay.
So
about 10% over the next 2 years, which is about what we see from year to year anyway, it seems like.
Yeah,
if that happens.
It really has depended. I mean, we've seen some, well, in the case of the city, we've actually changed carriers to get better rates.
Okay.
So this time, fortunately, the consortium settled with a Dean health insurance product. the city was already with Dean Health Insurance, so the transition was fairly easy for us, but we really did see a significant savings.
And so at the end of the day, this frees up money to apply to the capital improvements plan, to capital expenditures and things like that. What is that pool of money that we're kind of working with after health insurance and after salaries and all those kind of fixed costs, what I was referring to before, paper clips to on up, whatever city officials might debate on the county floor or the city council floor. What is that free flowing cash flow number?
Well, you had talked before, you mentioned 370,000.
Yeah.
That is about the amount of money the city was able to save through going with this health insurance concept. So you're starting your budget process for 2019 with a base amount, actually 370 less than what we had dealt with last year. So then that leaves the city some room to really take care of I think some needs that have been out there for a few years, but just based on the expenditure restraint program and levy limits, we just weren't able to do those things.
So we got about 370,000 more.
One of those areas, and we hear a lot about, is fire and EMS, and so that gives us the ability to provide them some help over there with fire and EMS. They've seen their call volume continue to rise, and so that was a real big plus on that.
All right, very good. So we've got some other highlights from the budget. So you've got a paramedic position that's being proposed. A couple full-time positions are, as far as the major highlights of the budget are concerned.
Right.
That's what we're seeing in there.
Yep.
Full-time position in community activities and services, an upgrade from part-time to full-time.
Right. They've had a really difficult time. They've gone through 11 different employees over the last 2.5 years or so over there in a maintenance type of person, maintenance and custodial as well as, and so we're looking at a blended position that can help a little bit more throughout where we see some need over in parks as well. But yeah, to have the amount of time that an individual, the staff, the administration has to go through to hire 11 different people is a real loss in wages and time as well for staff that are going through that all the time. So this is an opportunity for us to hopefully find someone that will fill the position and stay.
This is our starting point this year, and essentially it continues that way into future budgets. We don't lose 370,000 next year. So if we add a position next year in 2020, when we're looking at budget deliberations, it's not like we have to find new money to fund those positions.
No, that's correct. I mean, and that's built into the levy now once it's
built in.
done.
That's the wording I was
Part
looking for.
of what's difficult too, again, you always have to consider this job market right now, and it's just really hard to find people. If you're talking with businesses right now, they are really struggling, and that's why we see 11 different people in one position, because there's so much opportunity, so people bounce around a lot more, and so you have to look at what you're able to offer individuals.
There's some capital outlay requests in every budget as well. That's basically the stuff you pay for with the budget that isn't borrowed. We'll talk about some of the borrowed stuff maybe after the break here. There's a new canine vehicle, some solar-powered speed signs, thermal imaging cameras, some sand over at the park, an upgrade to the Swan Park band shell. What surprised me with the most discussion on the council floor of all those kind of items that we talked about was wayfinding signs.
You're right. Yeah, I guess we did have a discussion about that. So we've had a lot of work with Wisconsin Economic Development because we've had a lot going on, and we've accessed some of the grant opportunities that they have available to us. So they've been here a lot. And one of the comments that they have made to us a couple of times is saying, you don't have signage around your community like a lot of communities do. And so that was part of our discussion and saying, yeah, you're right, and then visiting a couple of other communities and seeing what they had and going, yeah, we don't have have a sign pointing to this is where the high school is and this is where the community theater or the downtown and things like that. So
is there a big price tag on that? I didn't even remember seeing that in the budget. Didn't seem like it would be too high.
No, it wasn't. It was we planned for about $10,000.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, very good. And now I notice them in other cities when I drive through. I'm like, well, yeah, they're everywhere. Why?
Right.
So those are just some of the things that what jumps out of the budget for you as far as or capital outlay or any of the budgeted items that were.
what jumps out is
what
that
do you think is most important?
Well, it's a win for us. That health insurance piece was just huge. It's an area where you hear a lot of, I guess, where we have shortfalls, where we've been very careful at looking at, budget costs, and so where are the areas of need, and so areas that individuals have expressed, we see our parks falling behind. Of course, we hear from individuals on the need in fire and EMS. It's hard to argue that when you see those numbers call on emergencies calls, because our population, again, we talk a lot about that aging population, and well, that requires more services as well. So certainly we want to make sure that we're protecting individuals and getting them to emergency services when they need them. And so that the insurance piece and message was just very grateful that actually the county wanted to work with us. And I'll say we were not on the list initially when the county, Dodge and Jefferson, were planning on doing that. I sit as a county supervisor as well. And so that was brought to the county, in Watertown. The city of Watertown was on there. And I was questioning in my own mind, saying, well, how are they a part of that and we aren't? And so actually reached out to Donna Molly, who is a county supervisor as well, and she sits on the executive committee, and said, I don't know what the process is here for this, but could the city be a part of, the city of Beaver Dam be a part of this as well? I see that we've included the city of Watertown. And she said, well, absolutely, reach out to the the county administrator, Jim Milkey, and I did. And that's what started the conversation then of them bringing M3 over to us and coming and saying, well, yeah, the city could be included in that. They didn't need to. So that's why I say partnerships are just huge. And the ability to meet and talk and network it's very, very important. If we hadn't known about that opportunity, we would have never been a part of that. And we wouldn't be seeing some help in some of these areas that we've had difficulty with lately. So we're very fortunate that the county wanted to make us a part of that. We don't help them at all. It wasn't a factor that our 105 employees would be a part of that. That didn't help them. But thankfully, we have a good relationship, and that we were able to be a part of that. So.
It's Beaver Dam Mayor Becky Glewen here talking about the 2019 city budget alongside City Finance Director John Summers. We do have to take a break. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Join us on Friday, November 2nd for our 8th annual WXRO Winter Clothing Drive for Kids to benefit PAVE, sponsored by Dr. Gent from Chiropractic USA of Beaver Dam. Bring your gently used or new child-sized snow boots, snow pants, coats, and water-resistant mittens or gloves. We'll be outside the WBEV WXRO studios at 100 Bill McCullum Way in Beaver Dam on Friday, November 2nd between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m.
Don't miss the Fleet Farm Truckload Savings Event this Friday through Sunday. We're passing big savings onto you with the best deals, like Remington 87-quart storage trunks on sale for $14.99. KT Wild Bird Food, 20-pound bags are 2 for $8. Valvoline Conventional Oil, 5 quarts are only $13.99. And save $100 on the Bandit 18-foot ladder stand for 3 days only. Truckload season is Fleet Farm season. Fleet Farm. Built for real life.
I'm Tim Green, president of Burris Seed. If you're not growing Burris, let us help you capture the most return on your seed investment dollar.
Not every acre is flat, well-drained prairie soil, so Burris tests on all soils.
We guide you on the best products for you, your soils, and your management style.
When Dad and I make seed decisions, Burris is at the top of the list. We like working with an independent company that looks ahead. I'm 4th-generation Burris grower, Luke Shoney. We plant Burris because I want this farm to be here for my children and theirs.
Plant your legacy. BurrisSeed.com.
I'm Glenn Grothman, and I won't take a dime from pharmaceutical companies. That's because here in America, we consume 80% of the world's painkillers with only 6% of the world's population. I introduced legislation restricting the amount of pills per prescription and created a new anti-opioid task force in Congress. American medical costs are way too high, and one more grieving Wisconsin family is one too many. That's why I fight for you rather than the drug companies. I'm Glenn Grothman, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Glenn Grothman for Congress.
The Emergency Department and Urgent Care at Columbus Community Hospital is staffed by Madison emergency physicians, board certified in emergency medicine, the same physicians who staff the ER at St. Mary's Hospital in Madison. Open 24/7. The recent recipients of the Guardian of Excellence Award, Columbus Community Hospital, is here for you.
October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. PAVE knows that domestic violence thrives when we are silent. Safety is a human right. We believe everyone deserves a safe space, and home should be a place of peace and refuge. No one should have to worry about making it through the day unharmed. Domestic violence is the third leading cause of homelessness in families. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been victims of physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime, and 10 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year. In 2017, PAVE provided 4,077 nights of shelter and services to 772 individuals. PAVE is here always to protect, advocate, validate, and educate. Available 24/7, call toll-free 800-775-3785 or text 920-344-0123.
Keep your vehicle in tip-top running condition. The experts on vehicle repair are at Russ's Tire and Auto, 1247 Madison Street in Beaver Dam. Belts and hoses can break or spring a leak at any time, and things like that never happen when it's convenient for you. Have Russ and Eric at Russ's Tire and Auto give your vehicle a close inspection. They know what to look for when it comes to problem belts, hoses, oil leaks, faulty water pumps, and so much more. At Russ's Tire and Auto, they repair American and foreign vehicles, so don't be afraid to bring in your Honda, VW, Toyota, Subaru, Nissan, Kia, Mercedes, or BMW. Russ has the equipment and technology to get to the root of the problem, no matter what make it is. The motto at Russ's Tire and Auto is, if no one else can figure out what's wrong with your vehicle, we can. Trust the guys at Russ's Tire and Auto, 1247 Madison Street, Beaver Dam.
Join us on Friday, November 2nd for our 8th annual WXRO Winter Clothing Drive for Kids to benefit PAVE, sponsored by Dr. Gent from Chiropractic USA of Beaver Dam. Bring your gently used or new child-sized snow boots, snow pants, coats, and water-resistant mittens or gloves. We'll be outside the WBEV WXRO studios at 100 Bill McCullum Way in Beaver Dam on Friday, November 2nd between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m.
131 from AM 1430 WBEV, streaming online at dailydodge.com. Time for more of today's community comment. Here again is your host, Craig Warmbold.
And our guest is Beaver Dam Mayor Becky Glewen and City Finance Director John Summers, taking a look at the 2019 city budget here. And for the first time in a few years, the borrowing component, what's called the Capital Improvements Plan, you may hear us refer to it as the CIP, is being taken up at essentially about the same time. And the reasoning for that is why, Mayor?
So that we get that done earlier in the year. We're getting our bids out than our RFPs to earlier, right at the beginning of the year in January. So we're getting individuals that are available. Again, the labor market is different, and there's just not as many construction crews out there to bid on some of these things. So we wanna be able to get out there and get better prices, get it out there earlier and than everyone else, and catch people that are available.
So we did see some increased spending for streets with the CIP for 2018 that was adopted this past March,
right?
Which was a little late for us to really get to some big reconstruction projects, but we did put that money to good use in the forms of like mill and overlay and
yes, right.
And stuff like that. What so this will allow us to then get a jump for reconstruction. We'll be able to bid in time to actually reconstruct streets and get to the heart of some real issues if this is approved in its entirety.
Right, because there's a lot of planning that goes into place. Some of those streets, again, we were talking earlier about streets don't always, the mill and overlays are nice because that's just doing the surface again. But when we're looking at streets, it's just really important that we're looking at what's underneath them. It doesn't make sense to do a mill and overlay over the top because I think that's a life of 30 years on a mill and overlay. If we're putting that over the top of the infrastructure underneath, that only, it's on its last legs, then we're going to be ripping that road up more often than we need to. So that kind of puts when we're looking at how we're doing and what roads we're doing, we have to take all of those things into consideration.
City has a self-imposed borrowing cap that's now for the first time adjusted for inflation. It was 1.6. It's now at 1.65 million. You need 3/4 approval of the council, 11 of 14 alderpersons to be able to exceed that. You've put forward a capital improvements plan that totals $4 million, with $3 million of it, 75%, going to roads.
Right. So it's actually 3.9, but yes,
Okay,
close to 4. Close to 4.
3.98, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it?
Maybe, yeah. I think
Oh,
I
okay.
rounded it
Yeah.
up for my most recent story
okay,
here.
then it is rounded pretty close. I'll give you that one. I remembered the 3.9. So, right, most of that is for streets, and we're looking at Roosevelt is and South Spring, which expensive again. Our roads are very costly, and so. But you're right. We know that roads are definitely a priority, and so we want to make sure that we're tackling that. And again, hopefully, and I really do believe when talking with. And we're listening to the debates that are going on right now at the state level. I think that there's a lot of pressure on leadership to get a plan into place for taking care of roads for the state as overall. And so we're just trying to get a jump start on that. I do feel that we're going to see some turnaround at the state, that we're going to start working in that direction. That'll be helping us move forward to continue to tackle that issue.
Should we tackle street reconstruction now then, or should we just wait for the state to come up with a better
plan? I don't
think
the state is ever going to come up with a plan that's going to take care of it all for us. So yeah, we have to keep tackling that, and it's just a big issue. Again, cost-wise, rates have increased a lot on that. When you look at the CIP cap that's been put into place, while now we have put in a escalator. Really taking into consideration that there really is no escalator in there for how road costs have increased and some of this infrastructure costs. It's quite the economy is just different than it had been. When we're looking at overall, prices are going to increase because of the worker shortage. What needs to happen is to make all of this balance and work out a little bit easier is real wage growth. And so we're fighting that issue yet, and it's something, especially in Dodge County, where as an elected official, I hear quite often, well, the cost of living in Dodge County is less. And it's been great to work with the Thrive partnership. That's Dodge Jefferson Economic Development
that we were talking about earlier.
And they have worked to pull together that data, and it actually costs just as much to live in Dodge County as anywhere else, and construction costs are just as much here as anywhere else. So Dodge County is lagged in wages, and so we're hoping that will actually grow, so that would help in that area.
So some of the street highlights as proposed, you mentioned Roosevelt, which it seems like there's been people that have said, well, that's a side street, why do it? And other people that have been like, have you seen it?
Yeah.
So that seems like it may be debatable there for some people.
I don't think it's debatable on getting it done. I think it's debatable on what's the right way to do that road.
Okay.
And I think John and I agree in saying, that's a highly trafficked road, and it's also a connector road that's really important to shopping and our hospital, and safety is a really big issue on that road. So I would, and I think a lot of us would argue that that's a really important road, that we're taking the extra steps to make sure that we have the safety features that are needed on that road.
South Spring Street, a couple blocks of South Spring.
Yeah, a few. Yes, okay. Right. That's in dire need as well. Yeah.
An alley north of Front Street. What's the significance?
Right. Well, the alleyway. So we've had, of course, issues, and this is not only Beaver Dam. It's across, probably our nation. And looking again at infrastructure. It's getting old, it's aging. And because of that, the infrastructure under the ground has a lot of leaks in it oftentimes, which we have these bigger weather events, and it's putting more water into the ground. And so then we have increased water tables that create problems, of course. So we've had some issues in the community as far as homes, but also business. And so that alleyway in particular has been still a problem for some businesses along on the north side of the downtown, and how the water is draining there. So with the removal of the laundry building in there, it's an opportunity again to correct that and improve that area.
And I meant to bring the streets part with me. I don't have it in front of me. Are there other streets that you want to mention that are important as part of this?
One of the biggest ones is Webster.
Webster.
Finishing,
yeah.
no, I'm sorry, not
Haskell.
Webster, Haskell.
Yeah.
Haskell is what I meant to say, Haskell. That's a big one in finishing that. We got part of that done this summer, but now we'll finish that. That again had some infrastructure lines to homes that are still lead, and so we want to make sure that we provide opportunities for people to get that replaced, because that's not safe for families.
Okay. A component of the borrowing plan is also for downtown revitalization, phases 2 and 3. Phase 1 was approved last year, about a third of what you had asked for. And I forget what phases 2 and 3 were, but you're requesting $250,000 this year and next year. I think when you initially rolled this out last year, that was a higher number, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was. So, we were looking at, and I still do feel, and if you attend the state meetings that I attend, and you talk to the businesses like I talk to, our downtown is critical right now, and it's also, it's just a piece, it's the heart of the community. And we are working toward making some big changes there. If last year it was the focus, because that's a total turnaround from what we ever did in this community, and having the vision to move that forward. So it was the big focus, and it was a push to make sure that got through. We've and thankfully the council saw that benefit and believed in that, and they did set aside some funds because of that. Just because of that initial that were set aside for that, we've seen over $2.5 million from private business that are investing in that area to improve buildings and bring new business in. We've seen a number of new businesses that are starting up downtown. So that piece of it is the economic development. So with the kind of the snowball moving, I do believe it's critical. Continue to help, that the city's a partner in that, as far as community improvement and removing areas of blight or improvement. But it's also, we have the ball moving, and so that's just very important. And we've also had some continued discussions with businesses in the area that realize that importance, that I think we're going to see more businesses want to be a part of that. The type of businesses that we're seeing come in, and the discussions that are happening about interest from individuals is really encouraging. And so while it's not as much as what we were looking at, I think we have things moving, and I think we'll continue to see development there.
Well, what specifically are you requesting for Phase 2 2019 downtown revitalization funding?
So we're looking to finish what is a river walk. River walks are really important right now, and I would say West Bend is working on one of theirs right now with MSA. It's if you take a look over there at West Bend, sometimes it's very impressive. But again, to create that community heart of the community. And so what we're looking at doing is finishing that river walk on the, let's see, that would be the west side of the river, behind the watermark. So improvements along the river, as far as if you look at the river on the east side right now, it's all treed and greened and has a nice appearance as a parkish type look. That's what we would try to do over on the other side, as well as adding a bridge that would be similar to the one that's further north on the river. This would be further south towards Mill, so that individuals can do a loop. We're seeing, we'll be seeing, and we are seeing, and we will continue to see development along the back side of the river there on properties. So there's a lot of interest in that. We have an individual that's interested in bringing in a farmer's market, art market for next summer. And so the thought and the hope would be is to have that along the river so that individuals could walk along the river and loop and be outside and walking along that as well.
What's still left from phase one that we might see in 2019?
So the biggest piece, we've moved forward on the trees, the walkway, the lighting has just gone up, I guess, in the walkway. Part of that was facade improvement, so we've had a couple of businesses take advantage of that, so we'd hope to see more because there are still funds available through that. We've identified funds and set aside for the purchase and tear down of the laundry. The north side businesses have had a difficult time with parking for a long time, so this will provide opportunity. A lot of those businesses have back entrances, and this will provide parking for them, as well as we've seen apartments on the north side of the street there that have remodeled, and so now they have individuals that are living in apartments, and so that we need some overnight parking. So that's a real advantage for us. The piece that we don't have yet is that purchase of a building along the north side to tear down. So we had a number of discussions about, and that's when we went into closed session a few times and talked about which building would be best, and we kind of went back and forth on a few. We put an offer in on the old karate place. They decided to keep that because they actually do have a couple of businesses that want to open up in there, so they are renovating that right now. So at this time, it's there's just conversations that are happening, and so we don't really have an identified project or a building that we have identified at this point. So those funds are still available, and we're still considering options.
Well, what about landscaping, like at Front and Center by Ming's and stuff like that?
So we took those funds that were identified for landscaping, and we moved those. I diverted those to the purchase and tear down of the two buildings. Okay. And yeah, that was going to be more than what was set there.
So we're not going to see that then in 2019?
Not through this budget, no.
What's the 2020 Phase 3 downtown revitalization that is part of the 5-year plan? Not being voted on this year. It's not this year. It's next year.
Right,
but
right.
What do you have identified
That's there? We applied for a river entrance to access the river along that back parking lot as well. And so we did not receive that. But we are going to submit for that again. We've talked to MSA about that, and they'll make some adjustments, and hopefully we'll see that grant come through then for that river access as well over there. The river has been, that's been a fun addition to what we've been working on this past year. It's actually a lot of fun, and we had, if we have that, we'd like to be able to make that access point there for individuals to get to the river.
All right. 920-885-4446 is the phone number. I know we just have a few minutes left in the program, but we'd be happy to take your phone calls if you've got a question for Beaver Dam Mayor Becky Glewen or City Finance Director John Summers. In fact, we are going to go to the phones and say good afternoon. Welcome to the Community Comment Program here on AM 1430 WBEV. You're on the air.
Good afternoon. Becky?
Yes.
Got a question.
Sure.
Okay, in fact, I got a couple questions here. You had installed these trees with the oversized, I'll call them flower pots, downtown. Even though they look good, I'll give you a compliment there, but how much did those cost?
The whole entire bid that we put or received on that was, I believe, $77,000. That was for the alleyway and the lighting of the alleyway and the trees, and we received an urban forestry grant for that, so that was for $25,000. So around $50,000 for the alleyway and all of the trees.
Can you break the tree component out of that?
Yeah, so I can't, that's the piece. I don't know what the trees specifically cost themselves because the alley bid out was a part of that. So that all of that rip out of the concrete in there and redo of that. And
so you have, what, 12 trees in there?
I believe there's 17.
That's awful expensive trees.
Well, yeah, I don't know what, again, I can't break out the cost compared to the alleyway and what that costs, but, yeah.
Is that something we can get maybe next time?
We could look at that. Usually, I guess, a tree that size is...
walkway that you're proposing putting in on the river walk or whatever. What is that going to come to?
That, the bridge is about $180,000, and the trees and boardwalk on the other side would be the remainder then of the $250. About 70.
Almost $500,000.
$250,000. Yep.
250.
Right. That's what. Yes, that's
you said
the proposal.
150 for the bridge.
No. That's all. The one whole cost is $250,000 for all of the renovation on the other side.
Who's paying for all this?
Well, that's what we're looking at right now with the CIP and having that included in the CIP. You know, we're looking at helping business grow there, and that increases the tax base and eventually will help to pay back some of that as well. Certainly, we've seen that happen already where we have new business created. Those businesses are going to, what used to be vacant, they're paying into the system now. They'll be taxed, and they'll be helping to bring in tax base to help pay for those things.
Yeah, well, looking at Walmart, they're not paying no tax whatsoever on property tax.
True, John?
No, that's not
correct.
true. No, they do pay. Yeah, they absolutely do pay taxes for our city, and they're substantial.
As a matter of fact, the number one taxpayer in the city is Walmart, between the distribution center and the super center.
Okay. Well, I mistook. Okay.
Yeah, and so our other option is that we continue to leave areas deteriorate and have no business, and they don't bring tax base into the community, and then you have an aging population. And an aging population that spends less, and then eventually, you know, we age out. And so to stay viable, we have to continue to invest in our community and bring business.
That, but this is all supposed to help the downtown community, which I'm all for. But now let's say John up at Burwell decides he wants to increase his business, so he changes his storefront around. He pays for that. Okay. Well, that storefront is downtown. How much is the business community paying on that? There, are they paying a larger amount than what the taxpayer is, or is the taxpayer paying the whole thing?
I'm sorry. Yeah. So could you clarify just a little bit more?
Are they paying more in taxes? I think is what
Verlo? Is that what you mean?
Than like a Verlo? Are the downtown property owners
so
ponying up more?
Right. No. So like it's based on the value of property. So a Verlo, that's like our downtown area is more of a blighted district. So they pay less in taxes. Rent is cheaper down there because it is, more of a depressed area, I guess I would call it. The areas out on the north side are paying higher taxes because
with all the money that you're sticking in there, you got brand new road down there, brand new curb, and going up Spring Street and downtown area, Front Street, and it's no longer a blighted area. How about increasing their taxes so they can start paying their share?
Right. Well, I would argue that...
you would? What about the taxpayer?
Yeah, I would. I would argue with you in saying that still, if you look at the stock of the buildings that are down there, they're still not the quality that you would find in new buildings. So we're hoping to get there. We have individuals that are taking those tasks on and are interested in purchasing and renovating.
Radio. I got to go.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your
we
call.
do just have a minute or two left anyway, and I was hoping we could have John leave us with maybe some of the tax impact numbers of what we're talking about. Could you maybe, we'll do this based on a $100,000 home. Tell us what the phase one, which was already approved for this year and basically already undertaken, is what kind of impact that's having on a $100,000 home, and then maybe project out phase two along with that, if you could.
Well, I guess I'll go one step further and project out if we were to do all three phases of what's been proposed in the CIP plan for the downtown improvements. And it's for this year, it's about $5 for a $100,000 home. And it gets, as time goes on and additional borrowings are done, the highest that gets to is about a $14 per year add to the tax to make these improvements in the downtown area.
Okay. And that's, again, assuming all three phases are approved.
That's correct.
At this point, I think I to be about a little bit over $10 for the entire 11-year borrowing process per year, not $10 in total per year, so about $110 maybe over 11 years for the downtown, just the downtown revitalization component, not the streets component.
Correct.
If folks want to go to dailydodge.com, there's a story that I posted there yesterday about the budget passing through committee. There's some charts on there. There's some graphs. It breaks down everything is just mentioned and goes even a little further. Numbers that you provided that were laid out are in that story at dailydodge.com, and you can see 100% of the tax impact. I know the Beaver Dam City website also has a lot of resources on there as well.
Yeah, I just have to say how really positive, I guess I have to end with saying how positive the changes are that are happening when we're seeing housing development, 3 new housing develops, hotel, restaurants, and we've got the brewery, we've got a lot of new businesses starting. We've got $2.5 million being invested in the downtown already with projections of new businesses next year as well. I think it's a really, that's the positive thing that we have to walk away with. Is it going to cost us a little bit of money to invest in that? Absolutely. Do we have to take care of those things so that we're improving our community, we're putting our best foot forward? Again, I think the biggest message too is to say business has been around for a very long time. If you take a look at Kirsch Foundry, if you have not been down there, it is amazing the transformation that has happened there. And they're doing that simply because of the same reason that I'm looking at improving the face of Beaver Dam. They have to compete, and so do we. And so and we want to do that in every day, and we put our best foot forward, right? And we take care of our homes, we take care of ourselves, so that we put our best foot forward. And so I just think we're being careful in how we do that to make sure that the tax impact isn't out of line. But yeah, it absolutely, we have to do these things for the exact same reason that Kirsch Foundry's doing it. Metal Fab of Mayfield put a $250,000 patio in for their employees because of the same exact reasons that we as a city need to compete and they need to compete right now at the market. The things have changed. People are looking for quality of life in where they live. And the economy is different than what it has, and it's going to continue to be different. We have to be ready for those things.
Budget adoption slated for November 19th. The borrowing plan should be adopted at that time, around that time?
Right. We were talking about it being on that same evening.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, we look forward to sitting down with you again, Mayor, after the budget is adopted in late November. I think we still have to hammer that date out with the holidays and everything like that.
Right.
But we'll look at talking to you after the budget is adopted and giving our listeners an opportunity to ask questions. And I want to thank you very much for bringing the city attorney with you today, Marian Schacht. I want to thank her for joining us, and City Finance Director John Summers. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. That is going to do it for Community Comment.
Tune in to AM 1430 WBEV for coverage of the Green and Gold game Sunday, November 4th, beginning at 5 p.m. And listen for the Columbus Family Dental Mystery Player of the Game.